Hey folks, all right, I'm back in Florida. Summer's basically over. This is my office. I do try to get up on out of here for the summertime, and I will tell you why. You know, in Miami, there's a playground. You know the spongy surface they put on the playground so the kids don't hurt themselves? Well, somebody took the temperature, and that spongy surface, 178 degrees. Can you imagine your kid running onto that with bare feet? You would literally have a cooked kid. But there's good news. The temperature's coming down. Winter's basically here. We should start hearing the New York accents around town as the snowbirds come on down. And things are gonna start popping around here in Florida. Now, you're wondering to yourself, what do I care about toasty kids and snowbirds, toasty snowbirds? Why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this because as things get popping here in Florida, it makes me start thinking about real estate investment. And I have something to say about that. Stand by. Okay, kids, here's what we're doing today. Now, we call ourselves an international business and real estate law firm, but let me explain what that means. I did study law in Spain, France, and Argentina. I did my legal internship in Spain. However, I am not a Spanish licensed attorney. We have a satellite office in Spain, and with few exceptions, we don't do a lot of work for Americans who are looking to do business outside of the United States. The bulk of our work is for foreigners, or just Americans, who are doing business or investing in the United States. So that's what I mean by international business. At least that's what it means for our law firm. I speak some languages. Everyone at my firm is at least bilingual. So we do regular American business and real estate law. We're just particularly well suited for foreign client. Now, part of the reason I give you that explanation is this. If you have watched some of my other videos, then you know that I love trusts. They're cheap, they're confidential, they're flexible, they're beautiful. But we're not going to talk about trust today. First, the concept of a trust is not that common outside of the United States. So, whereas in the past, I used to beat my head against a brick wall to try and extol the virtues of a trust, like a land trust or a business trust or an estate planning trust. I would try to explain all this to my foreign clients. It didn't go well. More often than not, the client would just go to another attorney who would set up an LLC and stop busting their chops. If you're a foreign client, there's a lot of money at play. You're in a different jurisdiction that you're already uncomfortable with. Yeah, you don't need a university course on some instrument that you're not familiar with. All right, I get it. I stopped doing that. Well, believe it or not, there's some of that here in Florida as well. Not so much in California. I find that the Californians are pretty savvy with the trusts. I don't run into this issue there, but I do in Florida. I've had the experience of setting up a beautiful trust, and then the client goes to the bank to set up an account for the trust. The account manager still has braces on, somebody right out of university, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what a trust is. They don't know how to set up a bank account for a trust, and that situation just never goes well. You get the scene where I'm on the phone with the banker, calling him a monkey. The banker's telling my client, get away from this attorney, he doesn't know what he's doing. Nothing good comes out of that. The same is true for some accountants, believe it or not. Some of them are not too hip to the trusts, and then we run into the same situation. After 15 years, I think I've finally come up with the perfect combination. The trust and the LLC, they can work well together, but that's for next week. We're not going to get into that just yet. One step at a time. Today, let's just focus on the LLCs. All right, so everyone's comfortable with an LLC, so let's just go with that. Very quickly, why not a corporation? Why not a partnership? Why an LLC? Well, you could do a corporation. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little more formal. So, for example, you'll be required by statute to have annual meetings. You're going to have to take some minutes. You're going to have board resolutions. It's just a little more trouble to maintain, a little more, a few more things that can go wrong, really, if you don't follow all the statutory requirements. So unless you are going to sell shares or you need investors to be able to come in and out of the corporation fluidly, there's just no reason. Why would you take on the extra trouble? I will say this though, LLCs don't always work well for Canadians. It has to do with the tax treatment under the Canadian tax code and how it's applied to LLCs. I'm not a Canadian attorney, so that's as far as I go with that, but I have run into that. And there's a similar carve out for citizens of the UK who may prefer to use a form of a partnership, specifically an LLP. Again, there are tax reasons for that. And again, I'm out of my depth. That's as far as I go. For most of you though, an LLC is the quickest, cheapest, easiest thing, and that's what you're gonna go with. Now let's talk about some of the advantages, besides being quick, cheap, and easy. First of all, you get the corporate shield. So, if something goes wrong with one property, you don't want it affecting other properties, you don't want it affecting you personally. So what you do is you drop those properties into the LLC and you isolate the risk. So here's something that comes up every time I have this type of consultation. Do you want to create a separate LLC for each and every property that you acquire? The short answer is, it's up to you. How risk averse are you? But, I can talk to you about some of the factors. To be clear, let's talk about the difference. Let's say that you have one LLC and you drop, 3, 4, 5 different properties into that single LLC. Okay, well, if something goes wrong with any one of those properties, you personally still enjoy the corporate shield. So the LLC serves its purpose in that regard. However, if something goes wrong with property 1, that problem could potentially affect properties 2 through 4 or 5. You know what I mean? Everything that belongs to that LLC is potentially exposed to whatever the problem might be. Alternatively, if you create a separate LLC for each and every property, well, you do isolate the risk. So if something goes wrong with one property, it not only does it not affect you personally, but it doesn't affect any of the other properties either. So, it comes down to your personality, but we can talk about some of the risk factors. For example, it might depend upon the value of the property. If each one of your properties is worth $1 million or more, something like that, well, yeah, probably you do want to create a separate LLC for each and every property. Here's another one. Let's say there's high risk. Now, I don't know. For example, let's say that the property's in a bad neighborhood and you think maybe your tenant could get shot or something. All right. So again, if there's a greater risk, then it might be worth setting up separate LLCs, one for each and every property. But it's up to you. The bottom line is this: you get your corporate shield, you enjoy your personal liability protection. And if you have any more questions about that, well, check my many articles here. Point number 2, and we've already touched on this basically, but common knowledge. All right, I don't care if your banker is still in diapers. He's going to be able to set up a bank account for an LLC. So that's important. The same is true for foreigners. I'm tired of fighting with them. I'm just going to set up an LLC because that's what they understand. Same is true for accountants or title agents. Everybody understands an LLC. I just need to get over it and move on. LLC it is. So that is why you care about toasty snowbirds. It's because this is real estate investment season. Now, next week, we're going to get into how you combine LLCs with trusts. I think you're going to find this very interesting. I think after 15 years, I've finally figured out how to get all the benefits without any of the detriments. So be sure to stand by for that. Catch you then.